Tio has us going, I think.
Yep.
So this is the call to order of the Marina Coast Water District Board of Directors and the Marina Coast Water District Groundwater Sustainability Agency. It's a hybrid meeting. Roll call.
Director Cortez, absent. Director Imamura,
Present.
Director Moore,
Here.
Vice President Schreiner,
Here.
President Morton.
Present. Okay, so it's time for a pledge of allegiance. And Garrett is going to lead us.
Ready, salute.
Pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And
to
to-
the republic
Just
for
stand.
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so now it's time for public comment on closed session items. And our closed session item today is a conference with regard to real property negotiation. The property is Armstrong Ranch property, negotiating parties Sunbury Growers LLC and MCWD. Does anybody in the room wish to address? Okay, going to the public attendees. I see oh, Mary's in on her vacation. I see 3 attendees and nobody's hands up. So we're closing the public comment and now we're going to go to closed session. So we will be back.
All right, Red, we'll see you in a sec.
Page 17. Recalling our public session, and during closed session, the board gave direction to staff. And now I have a pledge of allegiance of again, but I think I'm gonna skip
Oh,
this one.
Whoops.
Is that okay?
We wanted
Or
to
Karen, did you wanna
You want
do that scout, the 4-H pledge at this point?
Could you do it honestly? Yeah. No, I mean honestly in your heart.
So we have said the pledge of allegiance. Those members of the public that missed it, I apologize, but it was on my agenda earlier, the copy that we're all looking at. So we are now, it's oral communications, anyone wishing to address the board on matters that are not appearing on the agenda, this is the time to do so. You have up to 4 minutes to comment, and all you need to do is to raise your hand to signal to us that you wish to address us. And again, this is on items not on the agenda. And I am now looking at the attendees, and I don't see any hands going up. And I don't see any hands up in the room. So oral communications is now complete. We're moving to our consent agenda. There are 6 items on our consent agenda. And before we start, do any board members wish to pull an item or ask questions on an item on the consent agenda? And they are receive and file the check register for the month of June 2024, approve the draft minutes of the regular joint board GSA meeting of June 17th, and approve the draft minutes of the joint board and GSA special meeting that was on June 18th, receive the second quarter 2024 MCWD water consumption and sewer flow report. And E is adopt the resolution to approve our new fees and charges for our attorneys Griffith, Masudo, and Hobbs legal services for the year 2024 and 2025. And the last item is to adopt a resolution to amend the fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement budget to fund in-gym office park B side improvement project. Any board member wish to pull those? I'm going to pull only for questions, F. Not because I'm against it, I just want to ask questions. Any board of directors? Brad, Imamura, I cannot see you if you have your,
Nope,
no questions?
no questions.
So at this point, Does somebody want to move approval of
Move
items A
approval.
through E?
Of A through E, agenda item 9.
Second.
Okay, any comments? I don't see any hands going up in the public for comments. I don't see any hands coming up at the board. Brad, I do not see your hand raised, so we are ready for a roll call vote.
Director Cortez,
Yes.
Director Imamura,
yes,
Director Moore,
Yes.
Vice President Schreiner,
Yes.
President Morton.
Yes, so going to item F, which is on page 38. I just had a question, because I felt in reading this is with regard to the, build out of the rest of this building, and I don't like the way it looks. No, I'm kidding you, Garrett. I watched his face, that was worth the comment. No, really what my question is the climate adaptations. And so reading the climate adaptations on page 39, and I get the scope of what you're looking at here, but when I read this, I'm thinking, are we really abandoning or are we repurposing the Reservation Road building? And given that our desal plant is there, that we're in the process of redesigning and trying to put back online, is this really, this kind of looks like abandonment.
I would say it's, I mean,
It's not.
Okay, but that's why I'm asking, because I don't want the public to read it differently than what our intention is.
Right, so our intention is to move the administrative functions from that facility and to continue to operate at that facility.
And so there's some part of O&M that's going to be at that operations and management is still going to be over there, and there's facilities. No?
No, yes, yes. He's bemoaning the fact, chops to Derek and his team, they're maintaining a building, a 1960s building in an ocean marine environment, right? It's trying to get ahead of them all the time. Really, at this point, we're trying to move customer service, meter readers, and our server into our space so that they're with us. The desal plant will continue to be at that facility for now and time running. Our meters are there. We're storing stuff at that building. We have a number of our files are still there. So, and I think that there's a potential opportunity there for state parks to rent our facility from us.
Okay, that's what I'm looking
As we move forward.
Okay, so it's continued use plus repurpose.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It was just very much looked like abandonment and
No, we're not giving up our facility.
Yeah.
We're on the beachhead. We're not giving up our spot.
okay. All right, I'll move approval of 9F. Thank you for taking the
Second.
time to clarify that point. So we have first and second. Anybody in the public want to comment on the motion? No hands are going up. Brad, do you have your hand up? No. There he is. Brad's hand is not up. Director Imura has, did you have a question, Brad? Director Imura?
no, thank you.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Director Imamura,
Yes,
Director Moore,
Yes.
Director Cortez,
Yes.
Vice President Schreiner,
Yes.
and President Morton.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're through our consent agenda. All of those items have passed. And we are now onto our action items, which we are starting with the proposal to adopt a resolution to authorize the delivery and sale of enterprise revenue certificates of participation, series 2024, in the principal amount of not to exceed $23 million to finance water and wastewater system improvements and approving related documents and official actions. And our director, Rem Schertzinger, is going to lead us through these voluminous pages of documents.
Well, I'll start the roll, but our consultant, Laura, will carry the majority of the work for us this evening. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, staff, and public. The item before you this evening is the continuation of our financing activities over the last, well, since November of last year. As you may remember, as we worked our way through the rate setting in an effort to reduce the overall impacts on our customers, the board chose to inject $20 million worth of bonds into the first 3 years of our capital program. I think that was a very responsible thing to do because it does spread out those costs and allow ratepayers to come up to speed over the financial period. As a result of that rate setting process with Mark Hildebrand, we were then into our budget. And so the capital program was modified to address this need. And the capital program was essentially reduced to this kind of priority one process so that we could minimize the amount of bonds that we would have to acquire in this first period as we move forward. That then moved into our budgets. And so the budgets have been approved in the June time period. Mary and I worked with Phil Rolap and Jones Hall, our bond team, to develop the $20 million bond. What's different about this bond than the 2019 bond is this will go out for a competitive bid, whereas in 2019 we placed. So there's a little bit of a nuance for those that were here when the last one went out. But suffice to say, we have Laura Nichols here this evening from Phil Rolap to walk us through this presentation, and I will turn it over to her. Laura.
Thank you very much, Rem. Appreciate the introductions. My name is Laura Nichols. I'm a vice president at Philman Rolap Associates. And as Rem indicated, we are the municipal advisor to the district, assisting with this monumental issuance of the $20 million proposed financing to acquire the district the needed high priority capital projects. We do have a presentation in front of you that we will walk through that hopes to provide a little overview of not only the debt financing structure, but also the proposed financing participants, the overall schedule, and what is the market looking like in today's municipal market conditions. So I think without further ado, we'll proceed with the first slide and again provide the overview. As indicated by Rem, there was an indication in the 2024 rate study for the district to proceed with debt financing in the amount of approximately $20 million. You will see in the authorizing resolution before you in the packet that we're recommending the authorization of up to $23 million of debt to provide the flexibility to finance those much needed projects that were allocated in that 2024 recent rate study. Some of the projects have been outlined here on this slide. They include and consist of rehabilitation, renewal, replacement of your aging infrastructure, again, for all of your enterprises comprising of water, wastewater, and recycled water. These infrastructure improvements include, but not limited to, your pipelines, pumping stations, groundwater wells, storage, and other facilities. The schedule in slides to come will identify the remaining steps needed to put this deal into the market and acquire the funds by the district. But before we get there, what I wanted to provide here on the next slide 3 is an overview of what the estimated debt financing costs might look like for a proposed $20 million issuance. As Rem indicated, this deal is a slightly different structure as well on the finance side. Back in 2019 and even 2015, the district issued what we classify as level debt service. Level debt service is when the combination of principal plus interest payments are the same or equivalent every single year across the entire term of the debt. What we are proposing here is called a wrapped debt service. As you see in the chart below on the bottom of your screen, wrapping just means pushing out the amortization of principal into years where it's more affordable, taking into account your other debt service payments that the district is paying on. There's another slide on the next page that shows what your profile looks like and how we've layered in this proposed issuance. But before we get there, back on slide 3, you see there's only approximately $990,000 of debt costs all the way through fiscal year 2037. That is the interest component of your debts. Where it jumps up in 2038, that represents the beginning of your principal payments, where the total combined debt service cost is approximately $2 million. If we take a look at market conditions as of July 8th, The total combined debt service cost is approximately 36 million, and that's the issuance of approximately $18 million of principal in order to acquire the funds necessary to pay all costs of issuance of the debt, in addition to your capital funds acquisition of $20 million. This proposed debt financing is also projected to be a 25-year amortization schedule. Similarly, in other debt issuances, such as your 2019, the most recent debt issuance, that was a 30-year amortization schedule. We are proposing a 25-year debt in order to reduce the total amount of interest due and payable by the district. That cost is approximately 4.3% as of market conditions on July 8th. We also will be indicating to the market that you will have a call feature allowing the district to prepay at any time starting on June 1st, 2034. So after that 10-year period has passed, the district will be able to call its debt at any time without premium. And if there's no questions, I'll move on to the next slide, which depicts the district's total combined debt service profile. Highlighted in different colors, starting at the bottom, we have in dark blue, the district's executed 2015 bonds, which have a final maturity in 2037. Directly above that bar chart, we have orange labeled bars representing the Holman Capital loan with the district. The light green represents the 2 outstanding state revolving fund loans with the State Water Resources Control Board. Those have a 30-year amortization schedule, and you'll see that trickles out all the way through 2050 through 2054, making those final debt service payments to the state. Light blue represents the Series 2019 issuance. Again, that issuance was approximately 30 years and level debt service. And so you see when we layer on that light purple, that represents the estimated 2024 certificates of participation, where you're paying interest only, that approximately $1 million up through 2037. And then when the district realizes that additional capacity following the maturity of its 2015 bonds, that's where we're amortizing majority of your principal payments. So you have level payments from 2038 through the conclusion or the maturity of your debt in 2049. Next slide, please.
I'm good.
Was there a question?
No, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. Here on slide 5, we wanted to give the district's board an overview of what types of participants and consulting agencies are involved in this type of debt issuance. First and foremost, highlighted in the top left-hand corner is the CSDA Finance Corporation. This is a legal entity that we are using in order to issue your new money acquisition funds, whereas the CSDA Corporation will finance the project and agree to sell the project to the district to construct those related capital infrastructure needs. In return, the district will repay installment payments to that corporation for a certain purchase price, which again is the price and the cost of the overall debt. The corporation, however, is assigning the rights to receive those payments to your trustee. The trustee is one of your consulting agencies, a bank, large infrastructure bank, US Bank is who we are using for this transaction, who will receive all the installment payments and actually make those final bond payments to your final investors, actual bondholders of the debt. Your legal consultants would include both bond counsel and disclosure counsel, represented by Jones Hall. Your bond counsel is the individual who will be preparing all the legal documentation. In front of your packet today, you have multiple legal documents, which Jones Hall will go into a brief overview in slides to come. That includes the installment sales agreement and the trust agreement. Bond counsel is lead in preparing those documentations, in addition to providing the validity and tax-exempt opinions of the district's debt. Jumping down below to the other legal counsel is disclosure counsel, also represented by Jones Hall. Disclosure counsel is primarily responsible for preparing the preliminary and final official statement, which the document you have in front of you in your packet. This is prepared in accordance with federal securities laws and includes all the material information that the district would need to provide to potential investors to provide an opportunity to be informed about whether or not they would like to buy your debt. Robert Associates is your municipal advisor. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the district. We are opining and advising on both the structure and mechanics of the debt as your fiduciary, making sure that whatever we recommend is of the best interest of the district. We review all documentation provided by legal counsel. We directly correspond with any purchaser of the debt. We correspond with your rating agency during the credit rating process. We're directly involved as well in the structure through closing of the debts, in addition to preparing the notice of sale, which is a document that outlines the competitive bid nature, terms and conditions that will be reviewed by potential purchasers down the road. As Rem indicated, this is a slightly different process than what was used in 2019. In 2019, we had a underwriter day one who negotiated sale that worked with the district to review the documents, prepared their Salesforce team to provide a pricing based off market conditions on the day of sale, and sold investors on that day, or sold to investors on that day, recommended pricing and yields that were market driven. Rather than taking a negotiated sale approach, we have an underwriter reviewing from the start. We're taking a competitive sale approach where we determine with documentation classified in the official notice of sale, all terminology and conditions of your bond sale, including terms, potential sizing of the deal, interest rate options, provide that to the market and bid it out. This competitive sale allows us to retain on our potential bid date the lowest cost of financing to the district. Underwriter has the option of buying all or none of the district's debt. They will be purchasing that debt off of a select principal coupons and yields, and then they will then eventually, after closing, be selling that debt to final investors thereafter. To complete this bond issuance process, we will also need a credit rating. So a rating agency will be opining on the district's ability and likelihood that the debt will be repaid, as well as repaid timely to potential investors. The district's prior outstanding credit rating on its existing debt is a AA-. We are currently set to meet with S&P next week, and following that discussion and review of the district's credit, we hope to receive credit ratings the following few weeks on or around August 1st. Once that credit rating has been received, will allow us the opportunity to finalize the documentation and start that bidding process. And as I noted, the last participant labeled here on this slide, it's a trustee responsible for receiving all payments from the district, which has been assigned to the trustee by the corporation, and making those final payments to the bondholders. Next slide, please. What we wanted to provide here is an overview of the existing municipal market conditions. The chart on the top-hand portion of the screen represents what we classify as our benchmark yield curve. It is the AAA curve, the highest possible rating that any municipal entity can obtain. MMD stands for municipal market data. So the dark green bars represent over almost a 10-year period where that market yields have been over a 30-year period, starting at the year 1 all the way to year 30. Within that range of 10 years, we've highlighted where market conditions were as of July 10th. That's labeled in the light green line, where we see 4-part or the first early maturities at approximately 3%, increasing to almost 3.7% in the 30th yield. What this represents is while we have seen increasing yields over the course of the last 3 years, ever since our COVID pandemic, we are still not at the highest level that has been looked at over the past 10 years. So still reasonable time to enter into the market and receive debt for your much needed capital projects. On the bottom portion of the screen is our municipal bond inflows and outflows. This really is the demand for municipal bonds and the opportunity that investors have to have cash available to purchase that debt. Yellow represents flow out of the market, whereas green represents inflow to the market. We've seen a lot of outflow in 2023, but recently in 2024, you'll see in January, February, March were great months. Money was flowing back into the market. And most recently in May, as well as in July, there has been additional inflows to the market, which is a great opportunity for the district to be entering the market. Our current expectation is to complete a competitive bond sale in August. August typically is a good month. It means it's a month of high redemptions meaning investors will be receiving some cash from municipal entities like yourself who are paying back or redeeming some of their outstanding debt. Next slide, please. What we've captured here on this slide is just the 20-year and 30-year AAA benchmark curves. As we reviewed on prior slides, we're looking to pay principal back between years 15 through 25. Within those two yields, we represented that since 2023, where the high at the 20 and 30-year curves was approximately 4.25 to 4.5, we have seen a reduction in that curve throughout the 2024 calendar year to date. We've seen some stable markets. In the past week, we have not seen a dramatic volatility in how much those yields are being priced at on this benchmark curve. We definitely can't predict where the market is in August, but due to the competitive nature, we will be getting the lowest bid possible on the day of our proposed sale, which on the next slide, we've identified the remaining steps of our financing schedule. So here on slide 8, tonight is the proposed approval of the authorizing resolution, authorizing the district's team and staff to complete the bond issuance. As I noted, we're going to rating agencies next week and hope to receive a credit rating by August 1st. Following the receipt of that credit rating, we'll be finalizing the documentation as well as the preliminary official statements and bidding documents to bid it or post it, to the market on August 6th, allowing us to have potentially a competitive bid sale on August 14th. As a municipal advisor, we'll be constantly looking at these dates, making sure that we have selected a date that won't have a lot of competition, and then we think underwriters nationwide will be able to review and provide an economic bid that's attractive to the district on the day of sale. Following that August 14th sale, we'll have a few weeks to complete those final transactions, insert all final material into the legal documentation, and hopefully close by month end of August to provide the district with their much needed funds. At this time, I can pause for questions, or I can turn it over to Jones Hall to review provide an overview of the legal documentation before you in your packet.
Thank you, Laura. Let me see if there are questions. Director Imamura, do you have questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
No questions. Too complicated.
Well, I'll let Chick jump in here to review the documentation, and then we'll be able to respond to any further questions.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everybody. My name is Charles Adams. I go by Chick, and I am with the firm of Jones Hall in San Francisco. We have been the district's bond counsel for many years. We worked on the 2019 COP issue and the 2015 issue, and we're very happy to be working with you and your staff on this issue. Tonight, you have in front of you a board resolution. And if I could just very quickly go over what that resolution does, I think it'll sort of lay the groundwork. The resolution approves the legal documents, which I'll talk about in just a minute. It also authorizes the district to sell the certificates of participation through competitive sale, as Laura just outlined. And it approves your official statement, which is the disclosure document to bond investors and bond purchasers. And it approves your staff and officers of the district to sign all the documentation that's needed for the closing. The resolution really approves everything from top to bottom relating to the financing. So if we could just spend a real quick minute on the legal documents, as Laura has outlined in this slide. The installment sale agreement is really the key financing document in this transaction. It's between the CSDA Financing Corporation and the district. It has all of the material terms and conditions for borrowing the funds, repaying the funds, pledging the net revenues of your water, wastewater, and recycled water systems. And all the covenants that are for the benefit of bondholders are found in this document. I should add that the covenants that we have to secure the issue on this transaction are virtually identical to the ones in the 2019 issue. And in fact, the structure of this financing is the same essentially as the 2019 issue. So there's nothing new here. It's just a continuation of the financing structure that's already in place for the district. The trust agreement is the document that the trustee is a party to. It's the one that sets up your project fund, your debt repayment fund. It has the maturity schedule. It has all the repayment provisions that Laura outlined earlier. The resolution then approves the preliminary official statement. And I did want to take just a minute on this. The preliminary official statement is the district's disclosure document to potential investors and potential bidders. And we encourage district directors to at least review it for matters that are within your knowledge. Obviously not the arcane details of the finance structure, but the description of the district and its operations. If you have any comments whatsoever, please communicate them to staff and they'll relay them to us. I'm sorry?
What page is the disclosure that we're being asked to read most carefully?
So
Well, it's actually a separate document. It's called the preliminary official statement. You can't miss it because it's like over 100 pages long. And it has a lot of detail in there about the operation of the district. We always want to make it available to you. And as I say, if you have a chance to skim through it, anything jumps out at you, if you have any questions or comments, relay them to staff, and we will be sure to follow up on that. And then the last document that's approved by the resolution is the official notice of sale. This is the document that will be published. Prospective bidders for the COPs will use this to understand the parameters of the sale. It describes how the bids will be evaluated and awarded, and it deals with all the obligations that the successful underwriter of your debt has to follow. So that is the laundry list of documents that are approved by the resolution. And Laura has really covered sort of the outline of the transaction and the documents previously. If you've got any questions at all, I'm happy to address them at this time, or if you have any issues you want to just take up with staff, we will follow up on them.
Okay, thank you very much. Check. I'm coming to you, Director Moore.
So, Chick, on page 5 of the PowerPoint presentation, so why is the CSDA Finance Corporation involved if money's coming from investors who buy the certificates?
That is a really good question. The simplest way to finance something is just by issuing bonds. And it is a very unfortunate fact of life that the California State Legislature has not given county water districts the power to issue bonds directly. In order to deal with that, we have to set up this fiction whereby you are purchasing the completed project and paying installment payments. And in order to set that up, you need a counterparty. You need another party to the installment sale agreement that technically agrees to raise the money, make the money available to you to build the project, and then technically they are selling it to you, the district, on an installment basis, and you're agreeing to repay the debt in the form of installment payments. It's a very convoluted structure. It is the structure that you have previously used. It's the structure that all county water districts use because it's the only one that's really available. It is tried and true. It looks like smoke and mirrors, and I can't argue against that characterization, but it does work.
So effectively, CSDA Finance Corporation is the entity that's issuing the bond.
That's right. That's in a very real sense. That's true. They're called certificates of participation. They're functionally the equivalent of a bond. And yes, they accomplish that, as Laura described, by assigning the installment sale payments to the trustee. And then that enables the trustee to actually execute and deliver the certificates of participation. The certificates of participation really evidence and represent the district's installment payments. And because the district's installment payments are denominated into principal and interest components. So too are the certificates of participation. If you buy one of them, it looks like a bond, it tastes like a bond, it feels like a bond. It is the functional equivalent of a bond. We would all appreciate it if the state legislature would let us just do a straight bond issue, but we're not there. So this is what we're left with.
CSDA Finance Corporation, what is its organization? Is it a private corporation? Is it a nonprofit corporation? Is it a
No,
government?
it's boy, help me, Rem or somebody with the CSDA. It's the California Special Districts Authority. And you actually are a member of it.
Well, we're CSDA. I don't know what-
CSDA.
Yeah.
CSDA, because of the problem that you have with all other county water districts and other special agencies, for that matter, of all type, that you can't issue bonds directly. CSDA has formed a finance corporation for the express purpose of doing exactly what it's doing here. It's a counterparty that they make available to their members to facilitate their COP issues.
So are they a profit corporation or a for-profit corporation?
They're a nonprofit corporation. They charge a nominal one-time upfront fee, and it really just is designed to compensate them for their costs of doing the transaction. I think, Laura, it's not a big amount. I can't remember what it is.
It's approximately 7,000.
Yeah. And that pays their staff, and it pays their attorney who reviews everything. But they are a friendly group, and they basically sign all the papers, and then they go home, and you never deal with them again.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I have a few.
Please.
I have a few.
Vice President Schreiner has some questions for you.
I have a few on the documents and on some of the terms of the documents. But one of them that came to my mind in page 106 of our agenda packet, I'm not really sure which document that is going to be called. But 106, it talks about some of the limitations to amending this this bond issuance that the district has. When someone buys these bids on these bonds, will they be allowed to amend our agreements with them?
No amendments can be made without your consent.
Okay,
Yeah, no, your approval is required to any amendments. It's very rare to have an amendment, but if there were one, it would come back to you for approval, and it would be absolutely at your discretion to approve it or not.
okay, thank you. And then some of the terms that I had trouble with, I'm not familiar with something called the Blue Sky Law.
Blue sky laws are laws dealing, they're state laws dealing with the sale of securities within the state. And it's possible that as Laura described, the COPs will be sold on a competitive basis. And it's entirely possible that they'll be bought by somebody who, well, let me back up a minute. The vast majority of California issued bonds are bought by people who live in California because they are exempt from California income tax. They have a very high value to people who live in the state. But it's not uncommon, and especially in a competitive sale, where some of the buyers will be located out of state, and the blue sky laws refer to the qualifications that the underwriter has to jump through, the hoops the underwriter has to jump through in order to sell your bonds in another state. It does not involve you at all. It's strictly something that the underwriter may be required to do depending on where the bonds are sold. But again, the district is not obligated to do anything. Blue sky law is simply a state securities law. It's similar to the SEC, only it's at the state level.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And page 92, it had a sinking fund. I'm not familiar with sinking fund.
Yes, Laura, maybe you can go back to the slide that shows the debt service schedule. I think that might be helpful to illustrate what a sinking fund is.
Yeah, I think she
That's slide 3.
If we can get back there. Yeah, so uh, when you issue bonds or COPs, they typically mature every year. Uh, every bond, every year you'll have a bond that matures. Uh, Sometimes the underwriters like to package them together and maybe have what we call a term bond that matures in a later year, and it sort of sweeps in or encompasses bonds that are maturing earlier. And in order to stay on this schedule that you see here, those bonds are simply subject to annual redemption. It's, again, it's purely a device that allows the underwriters to market their bonds to typically institutional investors who don't want to buy a bunch of what we call serial maturities, bonds maturing in 1 year and then the next year and then the next year. They just want to buy one big bond that's sort of the aggregation of all those. And a term bond is the way that enables them to do that and yet still have you paying on these bar charts that you see here, rather than have you one big giant payment due in year 2049, for example. It doesn't affect the district. It's simply an option that makes the bonds more marketable to potential bidders.
So for some bidders, the payment would be decreasing, is that the idea of the sinking instead of being increasing toward the end?
No, it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't affect the repayment schedule that you're seeing here. You will continue to pay exactly as it's outlined here. It just allows the underwriter to package some of those bars into one big bar. But that's purely for the purpose of marketing the bonds to typically an institutional investor who doesn't want to buy all these individual bonds one by one by one. They want to buy one big bond with a later maturity date.
So when I get to that point of having that much money, then I can worry about exactly what it is.
Yes, if you have your district hat on, it makes no difference to you.
Okay, and then on page 140 is the offering price, that phrase I'm not familiar with.
You're,
Price.
you're really getting into some arcane stuff here.
I'm sorry,
That is, no, these are all good questions. I'm happy to address. This is an IRS requirement. The Internal Revenue Service has regulations that require us, working with Laura's firm, to verify the yield on the bonds. And the yield on your bonds, as this chart shows, is going to be very close to 4.26%. The hold the price rule is a rule that if the underwriter doesn't sell all the bonds initially, but holds some of them in inventory, the IRS basically says that's okay, but you have to hold the price. You have to maintain the price at which you agreed to purchase them. It's a very, as I say, arcane rule that underwriters have to comply with in order for us to certify the yield on the bonds, this 4.26%.
Okay, thank you for that on the terms. And then there was something I didn't quite understand. It was like a template on page 215. It looked like it was designed for our legal counsel, and appendix C it's called. So it's like an example of what a legal counsel might want to write up. Is that eventually going to be updated with our actual legal counsel opinion, or is that just part of a package that goes out? This is like a standard template.
That is designed to show the bidders what the opinion looks like that they will eventually get. And it can only be finalized after all the bonds have been, after bids have been received and we have final numbers and final details. So that is just designed to show them this is the form of the opinion you'll get, and when you get it, all these blanks will be filled in. but we can't fill them in now because until the bond sale takes place, we don't know what they are.
And then on page 216, where it says respectfully submitted, instead of a professional law corporation, it'll say something like Jones Hall or Masuda Hobbs or somebody that
Yeah,
would know.
that's our legal opinion. Again, that's designed to show investors who are bidding on the bonds, that's designed to show them what our opinion looks like. And that's actually the opinion where we tell them that the bond issue or the COP issue is tax exempt. And we will actually finalize that opinion and sign it and deliver it to them. And that's done at the closing, which, as Laura indicates, is scheduled for August 28th.
Okay, yeah, it seems a kind of anonymous and not at this point, but I understand, I think.
Yeah, there's text in the document up front referring to this exhibit that tells them that we, Jones Hall, will be signing that opinion.
Okay, I missed that, I guess. Thank you. And then one last thing, it's something I feel like I do know a little bit about, and it's worded oddly. Maybe that's, what did you call it, the arcane? But on page 203, 203 at the bottom, there's some talk about the Salinas Basin is the largest coastal groundwater basin within the central coast of California. It lies within the southern coast ranges between the San Joaquin Valley and Pacific Ocean, and is drained by the Salinas River. I'm a little concerned about that language, just that I hope that our whole aquifer system is not being drained by the Salinas River. And I wonder if we can still wordsmith this a tiny bit there.
That's
Yeah.
arcane water term.
An arcane water term,
Yes.
but it's not actually drained, it's just a term that people use.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, it's used,
Where the outlet is
Flows.
in the ocean.
yeah,
Uh,
drains the ocean.
For the watershed though, right, not for the aquifer. So the basin can be a watershed, or it can be used as an aquifer.
Surface water drains, I
Yeah,
think
it's
is
a
your point,
surface-
but the
that's a surface
question
water.
is, we're aquifer dependent. They don't
But-
drain to the ocean, we hope.
Well, they do.
Well, they do.
Groundwater drains to the ocean.
Also,
If they
yeah,
weren't pumping so much, they
Well,
would drain.
it's the reverse of my.
Right now we're making a mistake.
Yeah, it's the wrong direction. Okay, well, we don't want to misrepresent anything.
Okay,
is it still possible to wordsmith, or these
no,
are
that's fine.
finalized?
No, that's a.
The term of art that
that's
we're
a
letting
term,
go.
Yeah,
Oh, it's an okay term.
it's an arcane term.
I'm good at spotting the arcane today. Okay, I think that really is, I appreciate everybody's patience. That's the,
Oh, it's an education for all of us, Director Schreiner. Thank you.
all the arcane.
They're all good questions, all good questions.
Thank you.
Can I just ask Director Imamura?
Sure.
Director Imamura, did you have questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the presentation. So were these slides included in the packet? Or did you receive them at the meeting tonight?
So as President will answer, they were on the dais here when we sat down. It was not,
Okay. I'm just looking at them for the first time, so just
Everybody did.
kind of absorbing this.
yes.
Thank you.
And point out the slides were prepared by our consultants and provided to us, not by our staff.
Okay. I'll get them later. Thank you.
We'll have them sent over tomorrow, Brett. Or
Did you hear that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to Director Moore.
So, is there going to be one single underwriter, or that we pick from amongst the bids of multiple underwriters? Or do underwriters potentially bid for 10 million of 20 million? We might have 2 underwriters, or 3 or 10.
Great question, Director Moore. I'll respond here. There is, inside the official notice of sale is a requirement for a purchaser of our debt to provide a bid for all or none. So one purchaser will provide a bid for 100% of the entirety of the principal amount, estimated to be $18 million. So you will not have multiple underwriters purchasing miniature blocks of our proposed sale. One purchaser at the lowest true interest cost will be selected by the district on the day of sale.
And that's a normal sort of practice.
Yes.
And what's the rationale behind that practice?
Because of the size of this transaction, and honestly regarding any size transaction, it's easier to have the underwriters the flexibility to provide to their sales force, to potential investors. As Chick mentioned, there's different types of pricing requirements. Different types of investors want different types of deals. So some like the later end maturities, some like large block sizes, some only will buy maturities between years 5 and 10, otherwise will buy maturities between 10 and 20. So allowing the purchaser to buy all of the debt gives them, in my mind, a little more flexibility to purchase and resell them to investors.
Yeah, and if I could jump in too, you don't want the situation where bidders get to just cherry pick the maturities that are the most popular and not offer to purchase the others. You could end up not being able to sell all of your debt. You really want to force them to issue or to put in a bid for all of the debt.
So maybe I'm a little bit not understanding quite how this is working. So when you say there's multiple maturities, what exactly do you mean? This is a 25-year transaction at 4.26%. That's one maturity. At least that's the way it looks to us.
If you go to slide 3, the representation of your annual principal and interest component. So where you see the way our structure is currently prepared, all the way through 2037, that's just interest components. There are no individualized maturities. For every typical type of sale of debt, you sell to the market based off individualized maturities. As I showed on a prior slide, the yield curve that we're basing the pricing off of has yield maturity starting at year 1, which is 2025, all the way to year 30, which is 2054. Each individual maturity has a different yield associated with it. So when we price to the market, there are different types of coupons and yields associated with individualized maturities. So maturity size as of 2038, for example, will have potential $2 million block size. The next year, 2039, might have a $2.1 million block size, all based off a different type of coupon and yield comparable to that market benchmark yield curve. So that in totality, when you aggregate the total amount of all maturities, you have come up with approximately $18.2 million issuance.
Yeah,
So-
each one of these big bars starting in 2038 and going all the way through 2049, each one of those bonds is a separate maturity. And in fact, when we close, there's a separate bond that's actually signed and issued for each one of those bars.
Wow.
So effectively, there's 25, we are selling 25 bonds of different lengths, different maturities.
Oh, the first ones
Only
are
for the
interesting.
maturities that have principal director. So that's about
Yeah,
12.
it's only the tall bars
Sure.
there, because as Laura explained earlier, the early years are interest only. It's not a principal maturity. Principal maturities start in 2038 and go through 2049, which I think is 12 years.
Correct.
But whatever underwriter wins this process, as an investor, would I be able to go to them and say, I want to buy a chunk of this bond transaction you did with Marina Coast Water District in 2024, and I want to put my money in now, and I want to get it out on 6/1/2028.
2028.
2038 would be one of the options, and that's correct, yes.
2028.
2028, no. 2038, yes.
38. Mhm.
So you're basically selling a number of separate bonds equal to the number of tall bars on page 3.
Yes.
That's right. That's
Correct.
right.
Thank you very much.
I just had a follow-up question.
Thank you.
Do you envision any of these being retailed locally? The underwriter will retail locally?
The hope is that they'll be able to reach multiple different types of retail participation. However, retail usually likes to buy short. They buy in their years 1 through 10. So these later block maturities that mature in years 14 through 25, that might not have as high of retail participation. Does not mean that a purchaser might not look for their Salesforce team to find local retail, but largely we're probably going to see more institutional investors for those later maturities.
That makes sense.
And when we open bids for the bonds, Laura's firm will immediately evaluate them and determine the winning bidder. And at that point, it gets communicated to your staff. So if you knew in advance that any particular investor was interested, that information could be relayed to them and they could follow up.
Yeah, but it's also not clear, it's also exempt from federal income tax.
Correct. Federal and state.
So one more follow-up, if I may?
Yes, of course.
Since there's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, since there's essentially 12 bonds to be sold,
Right.
do the underwriters basically bid by saying, okay, for 2038, I'll give you 4%, for 2039, I'll give you 3.9%, for 2040, I'll give you 5.2%?
Yes, you've
Correct.
got it exactly right.
Each one has a different set of pricing, correct?
Yep.
And you, some way, because other underwriters who put in bids, those interest rates could be all over the place and very different from one another. You have some way of rolling that all together?
Yes. Yeah, the bidding software program provides us what's classified as a true interest cost that combines the total pricing, yields, cost of the issuance, underwriting spread, which is their discount, their fee for purchasing the debt. All of that gets rolled into one number. That one number is then compared against all of the different prices and yields provided by a purchaser on the day of sale. So the winning bidder that we review is going to be that lowest cost to the district, the lowest single interest rate, combined interest rate.
Okay.
So I can see mathematically how you can do that. That's not a particular problem. I'm just wondering if there's any issue of one bidder gives us a really great number for 2038 and then crummy numbers for the other 11.
Mhm.
But another bidder gives us sort of mediocre across the board. Is there any timing that you all do? Is there any looking to the future?
That's what they have, the bidding software, does all those.
That's to
calculations.
come up.
That's correct. All the calculations are run so that the comparison of that total all-in cost of the district will be using all of their pricing and coupons from year 38 through year 2049, consolidated. It'll shoot out one final total true interest cost, and that will provide to the district the level of certainty that what you are selecting is the lowest cost after taking into account those 12 separate individualized prices.
Wow.
Thank you.
So my question is, so you're going through all of this, I understand you get the bids, I understand you're running it through the analysis to come up with the all-in true interest cost that then we're looking at what's the most favorable terms. Who pulls the trigger? Does that come to us, or has that already been delegated to your firm, Ms. Nichols, Laura?
Our process is to have a virtual meeting so that on our select date and on the bid time, which typically is around 8:30 a.m. in the morning, we have a group meeting with staff. So both, I guess Mary will be on vacation, so Ren will be with us determining and understanding through this process what we've identified as a lowest true interest cost. We will have already verified it with our software. We'll confirm with Ren that this is the lowest true interest cost. We recommend proceeding. Ren will be on the phone agreeing with that selection. We will offer it to that purchaser, calculate any other remaining terms and conditions we need to finalize, and then we'll call a purchaser notifying him of the winning bid.
Okay, thank you. Director Cortez.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the goal is to get a true interest cost of 4.26%.
Or less.
Or
The
less.
goal is to get the lowest cost on the day of sale. So depending on how market moves between now and our potential sale date, which we've estimated to be on or around August 14th, if on that day of sale you get a lower cost, that's market driven. We will be able to select that lowest cost on that day of sale. If, however, it's a higher market environment and we get a slightly higher cost, 4.26 is just an estimate, again, based off market conditions as of July 8th. The hope is we can get at or around that level. It's hard to predict, though, where potential purchasers will be settling their pricing and yields. But Director Cortez, the hope is to get on or around that value. Again, lower being the better.
Thank you.
Director Moore.
In that regard, it seems fairly critical the day you do this. Because it's on that day that this number gets set, correct?
Correct. A day of sales where the market drives those pricing coupons and yields. Yes.
Is it true that there are some, let's say, days of the week or days of the month that tend to produce lower bids than others?
We generally use those types of economic factors. We try to avoid a day that is of high supply, projected to be of high supply. We try to avoid Mondays and Fridays. We want to make sure the underwriters have enough time to review their books, time to provide an economic bid, and are not reviewing other types of competitive California issuance paper. So our goal is to provide us a day that we can enter the market where we have a lot of participation, a lot of purchasers who are viewing your deals, and approximately at the time we post our documents, we'll be calling around all underwriters, notifying them that Marina Coast Water District is offering competitive sale. Please take a look at it. Here's the rating. Let us know if you have any questions. We will be marketing your debt to those purchasers by asking that they make sure it is on their list of bids to review. And director as well, there is also going to be opportunities for us if we think there is a need to change the sale date. We have provisions in the documents to allow us to do so.
Okay, thank you for explaining that and having already done some thinking about that. Roughly how many different underwriters will you be contacting?
We have a list of almost 10 different underwriters that will be calling around. The software program that actually hosts your documentation, there is a iPrio system, there's also a MuniOS system. They have a list of competitive underwriters that they will circulate at the day of posting. So at the first posting date, they will actually receive through a electronic transfer all of the documents that we have discussed today. Your preliminary official statement, any of the legal documents, your official notice of sale will be circulated throughout the review process. And then myself and my colleague, Robert Poor, will be calling around all the underwriter banks, making sure that they have been notified of the bid sale.
Yeah, there's actually a notice that gets published in the trade journal, and it has to, by law, it has to be published at least 5 days ahead of time and ahead of the sale date. So all the potential bidders will have been fully informed that this is coming.
Thank you.
What trade journal?
It's called the Bond Buyer. It's published out in New York, and it goes to all professionals, underwriters, bond counsel firms, municipal advisors, everybody who's in the bond business gets it.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Director Imamura, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
So the only question that I had of staff is that we were just directed in this slide presentation to be sure that we have reviewed the preliminary declaration of disclosure. You guys don't call it that. Post-preliminary, let me find your language. We call it preliminary declaration of disclosure when we're getting divorces here. Preliminary official statement inclusive of continuing disclosure certificate. So as Rem pointed out, that's 151. It goes extensively through this. My question is to Mr. Scherzinger, and I know our finance director is not here tonight, should not be here tonight. Is the question is, has this, I'm ignoring that point, and my question is, that has been thoroughly reviewed and vetted by you and Mary Legusko. Okay.
And by your legal counsel too.
And
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Mr. Masuda, I didn't mean to exclude you from that question. I was coming to you next about review of the entirety of this packet.
Yeah, I basically, yeah, and I had a bunch of changes in the POS.
And those changes have been incorporated?
Yes.
So
Well, I
then,
mean, they've been edited. Yes.
okay.
I mean,
So my last question I want to ask is it the recommendation of our council, ask him first, that these documents be approved by the board in the status that they're in currently?
Yes.
And then my question to our executive director, general manager, is it the recommendation, your recommendation, and also our finance officer who's not present, that these are favorable to the district for the issuance of this bond
Yes, ma'am, they are.
and protect our interests?
If I may,
Please,
staff's
go ahead.
recommendation to adopt resolution number 2024-34 to authorize the delivery and sale of enterprise revenue certificates of participation, series 2024, in the principal amount of not to exceed $23 million to finance water system and wastewater system improvements and approve related documents and official action.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And I see that you have a question. Okay, so we have a motion with a first and a second. Director Moore, you have additional questions.
On page 51, since our president was referring to disclosures that we ought to be cognizant of, it seemed to me that appendix A required disclosures pursuant to government code section 5853.1 would be one we ought to read. So I have read it. What I do not fully understand in paragraph 2 is the second to last line refers to a purchaser's compensation of $109,380. What of these various entities involved, and there are many, which one is the purchaser being referred to in that sentence?
Great question, Director. The purchaser is the underwriter, so the bank who will be purchasing the debt on the day of sale. That's the proposed or estimated compensation.
And we pay them even though they're going to resell these, presumably making a profit on the resale.
Yeah, but the underwriter guarantees that if all the bonds aren't sold, they're gonna buy it.
And that amount represents the profit that they generate by when they resell the bonds. That's all that is.
It's part of our debt.
That's right.
Correct, it's been rolled in. That's correct.
That's right. And one of the exercises in determining the true interest cost is to account for or net out all of the costs. So those
Right.
costs are actually treated as if they are part of the bond issue for purposes of evaluating the best bid.
So how does that specific $109,380 compensation get determined at this point when you don't even know who the underwriter is going to be?
Great question. In our notice of sale, we provided a maximum proposed spread. So the highest that an underwriter can receive in their compensation is a % of total bonds. What this estimate represents is that highest maximum percentage based off the estimated market conditions and principal amount of approximately $18 million.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing is, on that same page, number 1 is true interest cost of the certificates estimated 4.17, but then in your PowerPoint is 4.26. So it
Thank
has,
you, Roger. 4.17 does not include the estimated consulting fees of approximately $217,000. When you roll that into the number, it becomes a 4.26 estimate.
Thank you very much.
Does your recommendation still stand, council?
oh yeah, I mean, this is all, it's a machine.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
So it's, it's not, it's all market driven. So it's, our general counsel of Turlock Irrigation District, I think they had 60 million or some number, and they had it for because of higher interest rates, so they waited 30 days. And we paid, so.
Director Imamura.
Yeah, thank you. So just to kind of sum up, on the motion before us, then, does that include, and again, I don't want to make any assumptions, but in terms of the advertising of the sale of the bonds, will that be provided to the staff, or do we see that? And also, after they're sold, do we get a closing statement, for want of a better term, I guess, that shows all the fees and charges that were done with the transaction?
Yes, within the final transcript will be the final numbers inclusive of all final invoicing that is prepared for your cost of issuance, as well as that separate compensation provided to the purchaser. The official notice of sale is your bidding document that is included in your packet for tonight. So that is the document form that we will be presenting to potential purchasers, filling in some of those blanks pertaining to estimated principal amounts. And then there is, as Chick noted, a bond buyer publication, and we could provide to staff that publication notice at their convenience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so no other questions from board members. Let's go to the public. If we have a motion for approval, and I need to see the public.
Teal, will you pull down the presentation, please?
Thank you, Tio. So
Mary.
that's what I told you, don't even talk to this woman. Our finance director, Mary Legaska, is attending as an attendee. I don't know if she wants to be called on to speak. Her hand is not up. I see there are no hands up from the public outside of this room. Anybody else have any additional comments in this room? I just will comment that within the scope of all of this, when we approved our rate study, the cost of servicing this debt was included in the rate study that we approved in May, correct? In June, correct. So this is how our rate study was set up so that this $20 million would influx come into our coffers to allow us to go forward on the projects that we're required to do. The funding of the debt is covered by the rate study that's been adopted, the rates that have been adopted. Okay, just wanted to have public understand that. With that, I think we're ready for a vote. I didn't see anybody's hand go up.
Director Moore,
Yes.
Director Cortez,
Yes.
Director Imamura,
Yes,
Vice President Schreiner,
Yes.
President Morton.
Yes, so we have just approved the resolution to authorize the delivery and sale of our enterprise revenue certificates of participation and all of the related documents by a unanimous vote. That matter. Thank you, Chick Adams and Laura Nichols. Thank you very much for your time, your presentation.
Our
And,
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
And Robert?
Robert Ford.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now moving to item 10B, which Garrett Hartel is going to bring to us is receiving the end of year engineering update. And this is for the end of year 2023, 2024 budget.
Yes, Madam President, Directors, thank you very much. Tio, can you pull it through? Next slide. I am Garrett Hurdle. I'm the district engineer. This is the 2024, as stated, the 2024 end of year engineering report. This next slide, please, Tio. I'm going to quickly go through the three kind of main arms of the department, which is capital projects, development projects, and then the workforce utilization of the staff. Next slide, please. So starting with the CIPs, as of June 26th, we had spent, there was roughly $12.6 million available funds from the 23-24 fiscal budget. This includes the capital replacement reserves and the capacity fee funded projects, excluding grant funded projects and those types of projects. Of that 12.6 million, 3.4 million was spent, and we were able to accomplish 9 projects with that spending. Those projects are listed here. And then also in that list were 6 programmatic budgets where we had assigned roughly $1.2 million, and we were able to capitalize upon 62% of that funding. That funding was able to utilize the 5 separate projects. Next slide, please. Development projects, these are the larger developments within the service area, does not include ADUs, which are the accessory dwelling units, or small renovations, and such, where someone may be adding a bathroom within their house. So within this, we had 6 projects and phases that had major efforts expended, which included plan and project review within this fiscal year, or within the last fiscal year. That included, as you guys are aware, infrastructure agreements, those types of tasks, the preparation of all of that documentation in the plan review. This also included inspection of the constructed assets and review of those field assets. Yes, sir.
What were those 6, sorry, through the chair,
Yes, please.
what were those 6 projects besides Sea Haven Dunes?
There was different phases of Sea Haven, the Dunes, and the Enclave, one of the phases of the Enclave.
Thank you.
Mhm. Next slide. Please, here. Within the engineering department, we had 7 full-time equivalents, FTEs that were staffed and available to complete project work. Of those 7 positions, 66% of the possible hours were staffed and utilized. This accommodates for vacancies, et cetera. Of that 66%, we were able to do 932 hours of work on various CIP projects, and roughly 1,315 hours were spent on development projects. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any further questions?
Questions? Director Cortez? Director Imamura?
Thank you. Just had a quick question. Middle of page 229, you referred to these 2 projects were delayed due to bandwidth of available staff. Is that a term you use, bandwidth, to mean to say that they were overloaded with work?
Yes, just the capacity of the staff, we were unable to initiate those 2 projects.
Okay, thanks.
Right, so we didn't have bodies, we didn't have the FTE staff. So
Right.
we're capable of
Yeah.
getting all work out the door. I would also let the board know that there's still latent billing coming, so Garrett's numbers will improve as we close period 13 of our fiscal budget, because we still have invoices from January that are coming.
So do we
Yes.
have adequate staff at this point?
We have there's one position that still is unfilled for a engineering technician.
Okay,
And we have hired a senior project manager in this last quarter, which is helping the department build momentum going into this upcoming fiscal year.
I think to your question, Director Mamora, I think at this point, we have used the capital model, and Garrett and I are currently looking at the FTE load. And I think with 7 FTEs, the department is fully capable of executing the $38 million that we have scheduled for this season.
okay, thank you.
In follow up to that, Garrett, is that part of the program that you designed and used takes into account not only funding available, but your staffing availability is
Yes,
one of the considerations that comes when we put together our budget,
Yes, ma'am.
is what can we truly accomplish, not only money, but manpower. And that is something that then comes to the budget committee and then to the full board with consideration when we're planning in our 5-year capital improvement program, how jobs projects get allocated, whether it's in this year or years future. One of that is staffing.
Exactly.
Okay,
It also takes into account the on-call engineering staff or engineering firms that we've contracted with.
right, relying on their hours and contribution.
Exactly.
I just have a technical question, I guess. 229. So 22 projects were delayed and rebudgeted. They include, so here's these terms. We just went through this bond, which was called something else, not a bond. Projects were delayed due to identification as new bond funded. Is that the the bonds that we just approved, is that what that is referring to? And in the two projects grant funded, grants that did
I'll
not
take this
happen.
one. So when we did, if you rewind 15 months,
Mhm.
when we did the 23-24 capital improvement program budget,
Mhm.
those projects were allocated to be funded by a new bond, assuming the bond that we just approved. So they were in last year's budget as new bond. That process has shifted, and so those projects are no longer new bond because we changed in the rate process of using the bond that we had anticipated to go out for within last fiscal year. We've changed that focus to use it on those renewal and replacement projects within the 3 cost centers that we went through in the rate
Okay.
study. And so that has shifted what bond funding is assigned to which capital improvement projects. But this is looking at the lens through 23-24.
24. Okay. Director Moore.
So I noticed one of the completed ones is the Engine Parkway pipeline, and we know, of course, that City Marine is in the process of widening to 4 lanes, the 2-lane part of Engine Parkway from Reservation all the way to where it becomes 4 lanes already. Refresh my memory, you had to move both water and wastewater lines or just a potable water line?
Both. We had to, it had to do with, there were kind of 2 different things that happened. There was the assignment of moving assets both out of the way of what was going to happen with the widening project. And then in the process of their work, Derek and his staff came across some appurtenances on some of the wastewater force mains that are not standard, and it behooved us to replace some of that pipe.
While we were at it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And are we now out of the new 4-lane right of way into the shoulder of one direction or the other with those pipelines?
We've brought it up into pavement where it's actually an accessible, a normal standard, where we can get to it, and it's not, it's actually, we brought it into the pavement as opposed to being off in the rough.
In the wilderness? Okay. But if we have to repair any of that at some point in the future, we don't have to shut down all of Engine Park.
No, and there, if you've gone that way, there's some significant grade changes that we have accommodated some of those new pipelines, so that there were some initial plans of leaving them at their current elevation, which would have constituted tens of feet deep sewer lines that I did not want to make Derek or his staff have to deal with.
But all of that at this point is done, so that
Yeah.
the rest of the widening project can go on without us bothering them.
Yes, there are some.
Without them hitting our stuff. No,
Yeah.
without them hitting
Without
our
the
stuff.
break.
There are a few other of those appurtenances that, as they're continuing to move forward, that we are going to, there's a couple of sections of pipe that we are going to continue to replace. But as far as getting our stuff out of their way as they're doing that widening, yes, we'll complete that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm looking. Director Imamura, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any hands up at the public, looking at the public. This is the end of year engineering update. If there are questions for Mr. Hertel, now's the time to ask. And I don't see any attendee hands going up, so that is it. We've received your report. Thank you very much. We're on item 10C, which is to provide direction regarding election to the Coastal Network, Seat A of the California Special Districts Association Board. And
So there are 2 candidates. And their information is provided. There's Lane Magner, who's with Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District. And there is also Scott Duffield. He's with Heritage Ranch Community Services District. Those were the two candidate applications that they received. And we are asked to, if we wish, select one to vote for. You let me know and I will submit the ballot.
I'll move to submit Elaine Magnuson.
A second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second for Elaine Magner. Any questions, Director Imamura,
No questions.
Director Cortez?
No question.
So I have a question. So do you have personal knowledge, either of you, about Elaine that you would like to share?
No more personal knowledge than what's contained in the board packet.
Okay. And you, in reading that in her experience, you believe her to be qualified?
Her experience, and maybe I want to have a little solidarity with a certain vice president who works in the same field.
Oh, Recreation and Park District. And,
I don't know if that's a good.
I don't know if that's a great reason, but it seemed like a reason.
No, what I,
where is Pleasant Valley? Does anybody know?
I didn't look it up.
I didn't look it up, so.
You're in Pleasant Mountain?
Someplace pleasant.
It's in Ventura County, I would assume.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very understand that.
And I appreciate that you took time to write a candidate statement.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's well written and clear and reflects some
Relevant
level of
experience.
thoughtfulness. Yeah, and experience, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion, any other comments? I don't see any boards hands going up. We have a motion to support Elaine Magner. And public comment, there's nobody raising their hands to comment for or against. So we're ready to take a vote.
Director Cortez,
Yes.
Director Imamura,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Vice President Schreiner,
Yes.
and President Morton.
Yes. Okay, so we will be casting our vote for Elaine Magner, Magner, for the CSEA seat A, Special District Board, seat A. That concludes our business. We're now moving to our informational items, and we will start with our general manager's report.
Good evening, everybody. Just a few items on the board, just to keep everybody on track. The strategic plan is on track, and we will have it delivered to the board at our August meeting. So thank you, everybody, for your time and all of your hard work. I think it's gone very well. To our ad hoc climate action and adaptation committee, staff has internally reviewed the CAP, and we are restarting that process. So you should see that in the next few months. The district is currently in the midst of its audit, and it's going quite well, as I understand, and we will have it delivered. You should.
Yeah, knock on some wood.
Yeah, documents being what they are, but we anticipate, or Mary and her team anticipate delivery of that item to the board in the fourth quarter, second fiscal quarter for the district. So everything's working out quite well. I want to express my thanks to President Morton for helping me with the Leadership Monterey County
What's on
group.
my report?
They came, oh, sorry, well, then I will move on.
Go ahead.
No, we hosted Leadership Monterey County, the 2024 cohort here, roughly 30 members. A couple notables in there was Rachel from M1 Water, and we also had Sonia De La Rosa, the CAO, also in the room, and the CEO, oh, his name escapes me, of Monterey Hospitality, the convention center. So a good group of leaders. We hosted them here. We gave them a President Morton gave them a welcome. They brought their own lunch. We gave them an overview of the district and a frame of water as we see it here in the county. And then Thank you to engineering. They let us go inside tank number 1 over at A1A2. So I wanted to give them an experience that, you know, they can say, oh, I went in there. So we made a mark, which was good. California Road 24-inch emergency project is underway. Thank you, board, for the foresight to commit the roughly, well, over $500,000 for it so that we could purchase that equipment and pipe by the savings, and the engineering team is executing that project. So if you're out on California Road and you see the rip in the pavement, that's us making big things happen. The GSA CIP, I'm currently working with Patrick and his team to develop the CIP for our GSA. That will be ingested into our current 5-year and 10-year plans, which the budget and engineering committee will see in the coming months. Also, something you may hear about out in the wilds right now is our new bill pay system, which is coming online. There is an inconvenience in that people that had previous accounts online, those have been shed and they need to go back in and re-sign up. But at this point, they can pay online, they can pay through their bank, they can pay over the phone, they can pay by check, they can auto pay from credit cards or debit cards, and they can pay in person. So we have opened the gates to more modern payment methods, and we hope that this helps our customers utilize fee-free methodologies to save them some money as we move forward. Yes, sir.
Is there a auto pay EFT option?
Yes, sir. The EFT option is still there.
EFT means.
Electronic funds transfers
Oh.
typically
It's like a check from your bank to our bank.
less
Yeah.
expensive, or I don't know, do we charge a convenience fee for that?
No,
No,
Nor
and
does
it's
your
the
bank.
same as now with the bank bill pay. If you're at B of A or wherever you are, and you go into bills, you can find us and you can transact now at your bank. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
okay, so we're at committee and board liaison reports. My agenda says M1 water is the only reporting kind of. Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. The big item, which you probably already heard something about and will no doubt hear more about at the last board meeting, before the board for consideration, was the finalization, final vote on moving from our bi-monthly Monterey One Waters every 2 months paper bill to 60,000 approximately ratepayers, to moving those fees, since they're a fixed monthly fee, onto the property tax rolls as one of the service fees below the line on the property tax roll. The director from Salinas asked for a weighted vote, and when the weighted vote was taken, 8 directors voted in favor, 2 voted against. Unfortunately, the second one to vote against was the director from Seaside, and when you add up the 6 votes from Salinas and 3 from Seaside, you do not achieve the necessary weighted vote 2/3 approval required to move the fee to the tax rolls. So even though it looked like minority rule, it was based on a weighted vote system that is built in from the days 30 years ago when the joint powers agreement was put together that created what is today Monterey One Water. So that issue is dead. There will be some explanations forthcoming under my signature called Shudo's signature to all of our ratepayers. Staff has estimated a cost of unwinding this approximately 13-month process we've been through. And that cost will likely be somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million. It's unfortunate that it happened the way that it happened, but it did. Now, I don't want to leave you with all bad news. One thing that we learned kind of late in this 13-month process was the necessity for having a 2/3 vote to approve this. One thing we learned a little bit after that was that you have to do that same process every single year. one thing I didn't learn until I got my board packet was the board packet for that meeting was 1,250 pages long. Because we had to print and make public on paper and obviously electronic, the assessor parcel numbers of every single customer and the bill amount that we were directing the county to bill. So that seems a little onerous, but in addition, we also learned that the 5 entity members of Monterey One Water who run wastewater collection systems like we do, only for years, they have collected the revenue they need to maintain and upgrade their wastewater collection systems in PG, Monterey, Seaside County Sanitation, Lost Landing, and Salinas. They collect their revenues through the Monterey One Water bill. And by going to the tax rolls, what it meant was that every single one of those city councils also had to vote by 2/3 majority to go to the tax rolls, and every year. I don't know if it would have, if we had known that from 13 months ago, maybe we would not have gone down that road. I don't know. Can't jump in a time machine and redo that experiment. So going forward, we're going to look for other ways to skin this cat. And the cat we're talking about is the fact that sending paper bills 6 times a year to 60,000 people, well, you imagine postage that costs, you imagine the printing, somebody has to stuff those envelopes, somebody has to collect and process the checks that come in by mail or whatever it means, yada, yada, yada. We've been spending somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000 a year just on that process alone. Well, our general manager and our staff here and our IT staff have been leading the way by going to more and better ways of electronic payments. So I think we're going to be taking a future look at getting more of our customers to take advantage of going all digital on this payment process. And that's going to cut down on that 500,000 or 600,000 or 700,000. And maybe we change the billing periodicity again. I don't know. We'll see what the board's appetite is for that. But in the meantime, you will continue to get a bi-monthly bill from Monterey One Water. Unless, of course, our general manager wants to bring some other action before our board to do something, at least for our customers about that. But we'll see where that goes. Next meeting is on July 29th. Any questions?
Uh,
I have a question.
Dr. Murrah,
I
thank you.
just want a clarification. I couldn't believe what I just heard. So this is like 2 people going to the altar, and then all of a sudden one of either the groom or they say, by the way, I don't think I want to get married at this time. So we went through all this process. Why wasn't there a vote in the beginning? I mean, if these people were against it in the beginning, why even put the ratepayers through this? I mean, it's no wonder there's distrust in government. I mean, this is insane. I know it's a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer it, but I'm frustrated. I don't know if there's a way for us I don't know if I can get any support from the board here to write a strong letter to the M1 Water, to the M1 Water Board. I mean, this is insane.
There are similar or equivalent actions being undertaken. And while there had been some reluctance of sorts expressed a little bit earlier on, those 2 individuals had not said no, and at any rate, yes, you are correct. There are consequences to how this went down, and there are a number of negative consequences that we're going to have to deal with. I think there's an old saying that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other types. So.
Well, I assume this is the public, so we those people that voted against her, they're identified, right? I mean, we can get their names and contact them or whatever.
You certainly can. They're young politicians, shall we say. And that maybe they have a future in politics, but they'll probably have, well, we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes anyway, so.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate your time and efforts that you being on that board. And again, I could only imagine your frustration.
Thank you, Dr. Eleanor. We all know that if we're going to serve in public like this, we better have damn thick skins and a whole lot of patience.
Well, is there a way of lowering our rates equivalent to the amount of money that they're now going to have to pay out to correct or to amend what they've already agreed to?
Yeah, great minds work alike. Before the meeting started, our general manager raised the very same issue. I don't question.
Well, anyway, thank you for your service on that board.
Thank you, Director Eleanor. I appreciate it. It's my report.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Director Moore? Okay, so I know that the Salinas Valley Basin GSA MCWD, I can save that for director's comments if it's not on the agenda. So let's go to board member requests for future agenda items. Director Moore, is your hand up or just still up?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
No items for future agendas.
Okay, so obviously nobody has anything to offer presently, but if you do, you know where to direct your ideas. So now we're at director's comments. Director Imamura, would you have comments?
Yes, just to remind people that, stay safe and healthy. From what I was advised, apparently the COVID is rearing its ugly head again. And apparently they're getting a lot more people contracting it. So just stay out of enclosed areas.
Wear a mask.
That's my advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Get well. Director Cortez?
Just want to thank the staff for their hard work and for the second half of the year to come.
Director Moore?
Thank you, staff. Good work. Appreciate it from all of you. And the only piece of advice I have for you or the public is if you're going to go to any presidential rallies, please attend virtually.
Vice President Schreiner?
Also, I want to thank staff and the teams that you work with. Your engineering team, it's good to hear that they're getting those positions filled. So I'm hopeful that it's going to get easier. And the whole team that's listed on page 45 that just you worked with for the bond proposals, documents, including our council and special counsel, and there's 6 different entities all listed there. That's a huge amount of work, and I think I feel like when we finished the Prop 218, the last meeting, I thought, it really went more smoothly than I expected, and I want to say a special thank you to the Roush and to the staff for kind of paving the way with all the additional presentations that we had. I think that really did help us. So thank you for all the hard work. It's been a huge year. And it's been productive, and hopefully we're going to coast like we're in the coast water district. A little bit.
No.
I'm still speaking.
You're still- Well, good luck with everything, and thank you.
Okay, so what was not on the agenda, but I'm just going to make a quick comment that the Salinas Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Marina Coast Water District Sustainability Agency, our joint meeting, we had that last Thursday. It was a productive 3-hour educational meeting. We were here till 2 o'clock without lunch.
Ooh.
And Patrick Green, thank you very much. He also brought Katie and Tobias from his office who are participating. Rem participated, as did I. And the real focus when we got down that there are data gaps, that we have added additional information, that collected information from multiple sources to fill in data gaps for this modeling so they can see what's going to happen. If you do nothing, are you going to meet your objectives of all the objectives that you have to meet? Quality of the water level, the seawater intrusion, no subsidence, etc. So with all these data gaps filled in, while there were some differences and some new information, the experts that sat here indicated they didn't expect a huge change in the outcome, which the outcome that they had when they last gave us a model was it turned red being awful. The entire basin turned red. So we will see the presentation on what data was put in, and now we're going to see that put into the model, and then the model should be done by the end of June, maybe August. I think. It was August. I have too many dates mixed in my head. So by August, and then they'll be able to see that. What I thought was really an important presentation on a different level than just the scientific level was that Sarah Hargrave with the Slings Valley Basin put together a slide presentation where she identified projects, multiple projects, and indicated that feasibility means technical feasibility, financial feasibility, environmental feasibility, operational feasibility, regulatory and legal feasibility, and social feasibility. What are people want? What are they going to pay for? And I thought that perspective was the first time, at least it's been brought to this meeting of this group, which has been in part what many comments are being made by public members and those with vested interest is, you know, it's not just science feasibility, but you need to look at the broader perspective. So while we didn't get into it, at least it was identified. The other thing that she really, I thought was a great slide that she brought to everybody's attention and to what we commented on, both Rem and myself as your representatives, was she's talking about, you know, how you attack this is not just those giant projects, but that you maintain your current infrastructure, what you have, what do you need to do, what do you need to focus on to maintain the assets, what should be maintained, operated, and managed, modernization. There's a lot of emphasis on in those categories of the CSIP project. That's the low-hanging fruit. And then there's the innovative projects. So to that end, I think both Rem and I chimed in about MCWD is here poised, and that we are really trying to be participatory, especially forthwith, that we see the need to maintain and modernize and put some assets there, our desal plant being one of those concepts. And as Rem reported in his general manager report that he's working with you as with Patrick, I didn't mean to point, I'm sorry, with Patrick as to a GSA CIP, which then what I'm anticipating is going to come to the board at some point is that we are really going to be looking at not just these long-term bazillion-dollar projects that we may think are necessary, but really what we need to start on and put into our active CIP project. So I'm looking forward to that because I think you can't just sit and wait while things are getting worse before you implement anything. So that was a very interesting meeting. If anybody wants the PowerPoint, it's on, is it on our board? Is it on our website?
It's not on our website, we can get it.
Okay.
Anybody.
It's actually on the Slings Valley Basin.
It's on the Slings Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, GSA, and there were some very informative slides and information. And to the other thing was the leadership Monterey County did come. There were about 30 people. We filled this room. And I had the pleasure of saying hello, but really the presentation was Rem. And Rem did a PowerPoint that was both, it was informative, it was technical to a certain level, but understandable. It was very well received. There was, you could have heard a pin drop in the room. People were paying attention and were very complimentary of who we are as we went. What'd you say?
Said they were taking pictures of my slides.
They were taking,
Nice.
I asked for him to send me the slides. I did ask you to send me the slides, which you have not. Okay, so, but the slides were very, very all-encompassing, both in where we are, what we do. It also gave some perspective to our interaction with the peninsula needs, and how we are trying to be a partner in multiple venues, state, local, et cetera. So it was very well received. We did go to the tank. People wanted their picture taken in the tank. They were very impressed with the, let me go play in your playpen. They were very impressed with that. So well done. Thank you very much. I know that slide presentation. I know it's your job and I know you know it inside and out, but slide presentations to be educational and educational, informative, but not dull, and you didn't sit and read it to them. You did a really good job. Thank you. I was proud of our organization. I was proud of Rem. Yes.
You might want to package it so each director has a set, so they might want to use it for.
Yeah, for public speaking.
Right.
It's
I'd be
really,
more than happy. We should send it tomorrow morning.
okay, so those are my comments. My comments are thank you. I just thanked Rem. Mary, hang up. You're on a vacation.
Swim for me.
And thank you to Derek, Garrett, Patrick for being here. You have to be here. Thank you, Paula, for being here. And with that,
It's not elective. You all.
Yeah.
I'm thanking them.
Right.
And thank you, directors, for your investment, for being prepared. And as always, for making measured decisions that further our goal of making this district stronger and effective and reaching our goal of being a leader in our region. Okay, so we're adjourned. Our next meeting is Monday, August 19th at 6 o'clock.